Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Institute of Child Psychology's YouTube channel. My name is Tammy Shamoon, and I'm the co-founder of the Institute. I'm also a registered child psychologist. And today I am here to talk to you about chores, why they are so helpful and beneficial to a child's development. What is some of the research around this? And also, what do you do if your child is not interested in helping, if we're starting this a little bit later in life? Don't forget to hit subscribe to our channel if this is helpful, or leave us a comment below. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, so I am a mom of three kids. They are 16, 10, and 8. And I'm just going to list some of the chores that my children do in my home. And then I'll tell you how I got them there. My 16-year-old mows the lawn. She collects firewood. She cooks one meal a week. She does all her laundry, cleans the bathrooms, walks the dogs, and then helps with her younger siblings. My 8-year-old and 10-year-old unload the dishwasher. They help with the bathrooms. They go out and they help with the animals. We do have a farm. They also do their own laundry. Just trying to think of some other things that they do other than like cleaning up, of course, is something I'll help with. They take turns vacuuming, taking the garbage out. So they are very, very involved. They all help cooking. And if the rule in our house is if someone cooks, the other people help clean. No one is off the hook, including the parents. So what did I do to kind of get these kids to this place? Now, I guess first and foremost, I grew up on a farm where this is part of the culture. We just expect our kids to help. That is a very big part of a lot of agricultural families because you wouldn't survive otherwise. But I knew, based on the research, being a child psychologist, that if you got their interest around 18 months old, and that's when kids want to help, is 18 months, they start copying their parents. If you could hook them at 18 months, the research would indicate that that desire to help will carry through adolescence into adulthood. So 18 months is the perfect time to get them started. Now, when it comes to the benefits, like why should we get children really involved with doing chores? I always think of the ABCs, which is autonomy, belonging, and competence. So our kids, when they show initiative and make choices in terms of how they execute chores, this is really good for that skill. And this curbs anxiety. When we do chores together as a family or a sibling sets, this is going to foster belonging because it's the family's job. And I think that's a really key point is I always tell my kids, this isn't mine and your dad's house. This is all of our house. And it is our job as a family to take care of it. It's your mess. It's your room. This is your kitchen. This is the food is for all of us. So we all need to be a part of this. And this house would not run without all of us helping. So I always kind of drill that home when my kids are kind of slacking. And the last part is competence. Like when kids, I've seen my 16-year-old bloom when she started mowing the lawn and she started helping with the animals outside, is she started getting really strong in her body. I always tell my kids, like, you are so ready one day to have your own home. You guys can do everything. You can cook, you can clean, you help out. There's no blue or pink jobs in our house. Everybody helps with everything. And so I just see their self-esteem really start to blossom. So we're not only getting these ABCs, but we're also teaching life skills. We're teaching them about responsibility, self-reliance, teamwork, reinforcing respect of our space and other people's space, and building that really strong work ethic when they do get a job, when they share a home with roommates or a spouse, or teaching their kids to do things. Now, one of the biggest take homes of this presentation I want you to know is I want you to not praise your kids too much for this, and I don't want you to pay them to do this. What we know is too much praise, and we'll teach you what to say instead. It's not like you're not going to say anything, okay? And paying kids for this. And I do give allowance. I want to be clear. I do give allowance, but it's not contingent on actually them doing chores, because studies show that this actually decreases motivation in children. One study looked at, for instance, 20-month-olds, and when they're playing with a toy on the floor, and then an adult drops something across the room. So they're across the room, maybe probably a parent. Almost every 20-month-old will stop what they're doing and go offer assistance to that person who needs help. But the second the researchers started rewarding children for that behavior, they were less likely to help the second time the parent dropped or the adult dropped something and needed help. Another study that was done with preschoolers in 1973, it's one of the biggest studies ever on motivation, looked at little guys who were playing with a new set of markers. Now, the first group was told they were going to get a certificate with like a gold seal and a ribbon on it if they played with the markers. The other two groups, the first was not given a reward, and the last group was given a reward, but as a surprise. So they didn't expect it to happen. And what they noticed, the researchers recorded, was that the children who were told they were getting a reward were far less interested in working with the markers. They stopped playing with them almost altogether. So they got bored very quickly. So this is why we don't pay kids to do chores. And I will tell you about how I use allowance at the end of this video. So just stay tuned for that. Now, I really love the book. One of the best books I've ever read about how to get your kids helping and motivated is Hunt, Gather, Parent by Dr. Michalina Doucleff. She studied families in ancient cultures such as the Hadzabe, the Mayan, and the Inuit. And one of the really interesting things about these kids is they're super, super helpful. And how do they do this? How do they get their kids to just be so helpful where you don't have to tell them to do anything? They just see that mom needs help or dad needs help and they just jump in. And that is because these parents, at as young as 18 months of age, like I talked about earlier, invite the children to help with every aspect around the house and even the parents' work, whether that's gardening, cooking, cleaning, because that desire is there at a very young age. We just have to cultivate it. And they do a lot of modeling. They give them small tasks too, not big tasks, because that's not going to go well. And they are very patient with the kids. I think that in our culture, we do everything for our kids because we're always in such a rush. And honestly, when you first start doing this at 18 months to 3 years, it takes twice as long. Like it really does. It would be so much more efficient if I just did a lot of these things for my kids when they were little. But I am all about, as a parent, what's the long-term gain here? And the long-term gain is having really helpful kids where now when I run a household, it is so much easier having them here. It's not cumbersome. It's not hard. It is better. So it just takes time. And Rome was not built in a day. So we have to expect that in the beginning, it's going to be messy. They're not going to know what they're doing, and they need you to slow it down to teach them, kind of titrate those skills, like one breadcrumb at a time, how to cut or how to fold. And again, it's going to take time. Now, one of the things I tell parents that is so important, other than starting them young, is to ensure that you do this as a family, not the kids doing things separately. Belonging and significance is a huge part of being successful with this. So I would say whether you pick a Saturday morning or a Tuesday night, is you pick times in which all the family is doing things. That you will be the most successful as a parent if you do them as a we instead of as a you. And you can say things like, "This was very helpful. Thank you." Instead of "good job," which has been shown to actually decrease motivation. You can notice what they're doing and saying, "Yeah, I noticed that you've improved so much with your cutting." You can say things like, "You figured that out when they were really struggling with it," instead of, again, using that evaluative language, which is "good job, way to go." It's we have to focus on the skill that they're building and their contributions instead of them doing something where they're seeking approval from us, if that makes sense. Like that's what we're trying to facilitate. Now, if you didn't start your children off at 18 months, I don't want you to panic. You didn't miss the boat, but it's going to be a bit of an uphill struggle for about a year. That's what I'm going to say. I'm in a blended family, and when my 10-year-old, she's now 16, first started doing this, it took a lot of pushing. It took a lot of tweaking and a lot of and eye rolling, and I don't want to do this. And so one of the biggest things that was helpful to me with her was letting her know that now I don't agree with that my husband gave her a phone, but she had a phone. So I let her know the internet, the Wi-Fi, your toys, all of these things, the extracurriculars, the trips we do, these are luxuries. These are not needs. So if you want these amazing things, which we're happy to give you, as parents. We want you to have these things. You have to be able to contribute. Just like we paid for these things by having a job, your job is to go to school, and your job is also to help us run this household because we can't do it by ourselves. And that's what I always tell my kids is this house wouldn't run without all of us helping out. So the best place to start is probably a family meeting where you sit down and say, we need to make some changes. This isn't working for us as parents. And we, not you, we all need to find ways to help out more. Can you give me, get them involved. Say, what are some ideas you might have? So another thing is once you've kind of decided and allocated chores is, we might use things like noticing instead of nagging. So if, the kitchen's dirty, we might say, hey guys, I noticed you guys forgot to clean it up. Instead of saying, you never do this and why don't you listen? So just noticing and pointing their attention to it to see if they'll start to make changes. Or it's when you clean up your toys, then you can have a snack. So using when then is another great strategy. And again, I mentioned earlier that this thing of allowance, and I'm saying not to pay them for this. And because paying children, as we looked at the studies, diminishes their capacity for initiative. So how do I use allowance? I use allowance as a money management tool. So all of my kids are given, based on their age, a certain amount of money each week, and they get it regardless. The money for the allowance is actually used to teach them to budget. So if they break something, they have to use their allowance to fix it. If they want to get Christmas presents for their siblings or for us, they use their money. If they want a new video game, they have to pay for it. They have to save. So it teaches them saving and budgeting and understanding the value of money. But here is the exception. When my children want to make more money, if they want to go above and beyond to do chores that aren't included on their regular list of chores, like I never make my children clean my car, but if they want to clean my car, I will absolutely give them a little extra pocket change to do that. Is if you have a teen, so you have never done any of this work, you haven't started them when they were young, what you can do is if your teenager has a device, an iPad or a phone, show them the bill for the phone. This is how we got our 10-year-old started. And each chore around the house is worth money, but not like you won't see it. It'll just be listed. And in order to pay for their device, they have to do so many chores around the house. Now, it's not my favorite because it's so tied to money, which I don't like, but it works really well for resistant tweens and teens who have just never had to do these chores. So it's the exception to the rule that I would tell you to try if you're really struggling with this. And if they don't pay for their bill, so you could break it down, each week is $20, whatever your bill is, the Wi-Fi, whatever it is they're paying for. They don't get that device. So that can be something that you could do as well. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. Subscribe to our channel, or we'd love to hear from you. And if this was a helpful video, thanks so much.